Your Excellencies, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Ikinde Ichelema, Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have to apologize by being the last to turn up. I arrived this morning from Munich, and getting ready to come here has been but in any event, the statement is always valid, better late than never. So please forgive me. I'm due to give a report to the plenary on how far we have gone in the establishment of the financial institutions. So that will not be the subject of these brief remarks that I'm going to make here. My concern, and to that extent, I'm proposing a decision for the plenary, is how we can contribute to the reform of the global financial architecture. We're all in agreement that the way the global financial architecture works at the moment, it doesn't work in our favor, and that there is a need to make some fundamental systemic reforms. But making the reforms also requires that we also take some steps that will assist us to have a greater impact in the way in which our economies are financed. And an important consideration that I want all of us to think about is that as it stands, virtually all our countries, we hold our reserves in foreign banks, attracting largely negative rates of interest. The proposal that I'm going to put to the plenary, and I want to share with you, so it will form part of our discussions this morning, is that we should take a decision that a minimum of 30% of the reserves of each one of us, sovereign reserves, should in fact be invested in the African multilateral institutions. I speak about the ADB, I speak of Afro-Exim Bank, which will strengthen their balance sheets and strengthen their capacity also to facilitate more and more resources for our development. It's a relatively radical proposal. There are several aspects of it, of course, that we will have to, if we accept the proposal, we'll have to agree on a mechanism for monitoring how these monies are going to be used, for ensuring that we get proper accountability. All of these things are necessary. But the fundamental fact that if we find a way where we can increase the financial power of our own institutions, we're in a better place to finance our development. Already we've seen the tremendous work that the ADB and the Afro-Exim Bank have made, especially during this critical period of the COVID pandemic and the COVID difficulties. Afro-Exim Bank stood very tall to help us mobilize funds to buy vaccines, to do all the same with the ADB. So these institutions are institutions which are ours and which we can trust. So if we can find a way of strengthening them, we strengthen ourselves. And that is the proposal that I want to put before the plenary. But I want to share those proposals with you first. That we make a decision that 30% of our sovereign reserves that we're now holding in foreign banks, we will in fact invest them in our own financial institutions, the ADB and the Afro-Exim Bank. And in so saying, I believe that this particular meeting of our organization will see to ratifying the decision that has been taken to make the Afro-Exim Bank a specialized agency of the African Union. It's time that it was done. And there's really nothing that should impede that decision this time. The last time there were procedural matters that made it difficult to make the decision. But I think those procedural matters have been now resolved. So we should be in a position to go ahead and do it. The second proposal that I am putting before you for consideration. We spend a lot of our time going from one country to another, having these summits. We have summits with China, we have summits with India, we have summits with Japan, we have summits with America. We've now had a summit with Turkey. I gather there are other countries that are getting ready. We recently had a summit with Italy, and there are other countries that are also going to have this summit. There's an anomalous situation whereby a particular country has a summit with a whole continent, and all of us troop to these summits because we don't want to endanger our relations with them. If we could find an institutional arrangement for ourselves whereby at least once a year we can meet to talk about the strategic matters that affect our continent, the strategic economic matters that affect our continent, I think it would obviate the need for these peregrinations, the moving around from one country to another, which we're doing. And that is the idea of having every year an annual economic summit. And that itself can be a movable seat. I can see very easily President Ruto hosting the first one. The Zambian president will follow. Ghana will follow after that. But we will do it on a yearly basis, and that therefore becomes the fulcrum around which we on the continent then will deal with the major issues that we have to confront as a continent as far as our economic growth and development are concerned. There are several of us who have Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Who have a problem with the idea of these individual country summits that we have to go through. So that is the second proposal that I intend to make before the plenary. These ideas have already gone through the hierarchy. The PRC, I think, has considered them, and they have also gone through the ministers, and they will be before the plenary for a decision. But all of it is stressing one very important matter. We talk, we criticize what's going on, but taking the concrete actions that will help us break out of the conditions that we are something that we are not doing enough of. And that is the main matter that I want to urge upon us. The statement that is made, God helps those who help themselves, is a statement that I find extremely important and one that is extremely dear to me. God helps those who help themselves. At the heart of it is the whole concept of self-help. So these are the two main decisions of the summit that I intend to seek approval for. But in the meanwhile, I think it's as well that this side event here that we're having should have the first effort to look at them. And in the plenary too will provide me the opportunity to report on where we are in the establishment of the various institutions, the African Investment Bank, the African Monetary Fund, and the central bank, the African Central Bank. There are various stages of development of all of these, and we will be discussing them in the plenary. Fortunately, 2 days ago in Accra, a delegation was sent by the president of the State Council of Libya, where the Libyan delegation under the acting minister came to tell me about their commitment to doing whatever they can to establish the African Investment Bank. They've set up a steering committee in Libya, which is now going to focus on the steps that are required to be taken to bring the African Investment Bank into being. I was extremely impressed by the effort they had made to come to see me, to give me this reassurance and indicate that Libya is once again taking up its role within the Union as we have known in the past. And in the same fashion, the other institutions too, where they are. At the end of the day, all of these institutions require action on the part of the individual states. We need to ratify the conventions that we have set up. None of them have received the minimum ratifications that are necessary to bring them into being. And that is something that is within our individual state control, to be able to do these ratifications in a manner that would then permit the steps that have to be taken to bring these organizations into being. Our criticism of the current international structure is on point, is relevant, but it would be even more potent if, with the criticisms, we are also taking the steps that we show our determination, come what may, to make the steps forward for our economic development and emancipation. So thank you very much indeed. And once again, let me apologize for being late, coming here today. Thank you very much.